The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
All right, we're back here. It is Midwest Swing. We haven't talked to you in a while, but you can find us on the Zone Coverage Podcast Network, which is at Zone Coverage MN, and you can find us on Twitter at Midwest Swing Pod. I'm your host, Brandon Warne, and you can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Warne. That's WARNE. It's been a little while since we've talked to you, so we got a lot of catching up to do on the Minnesota Twins. I am joined by the co-founder of Zone Coverage, Tom Schreier, at Schreier3. What's going on, man?
I'm here, partner in crime, covering this this disappointing, I think it's fair to say disappointing, Minnesota Twins team.
Yeah, and last I checked, there were 12 games out of first place. Might be a little bit more at this point. I didn't see if Cleveland played today. But it has obviously been a very disappointing season. The Twins have made some trades since we last talked. They have brought up a couple of youngsters, a few youngsters, really. And so we can kind of wrap about all that. I do want to give a special shout-out to Pick and Shovelware. Thank them for giving us some swag at the Twins Daily Tuesday
Taproom Tour.
Yeah,
the one
right.
At Modest. I think it was the first one they did.
Yep. So a lot of cool stuff from them. Want to say thank you for the sweet threads. If you want to check them out, look up Pick and Shovelware on Google. They're easy to find, and you get all kinds of stuff. Minnesota sports.
Probably seen the hat.
And lifestyle wear. Yeah, hats, all that fun stuff. So check them out, Pick and Shovelware. I believe it's pickandshovelware.com. Anyway, Tom, let's get back to the subject at hand. Minnesota Twins are opening up a 2-game set with the Pittsburgh Pirates now that they're back home. Then they got a couple, I think it's 3 with Detroit, 1 with Chicago, and it's a makeup from when they were snowed out back early in the season. And then they will head out on the road. And so it's a very short homestand, but interesting to see Pittsburgh come into town. I always like seeing the teams. We don't get to see that often.
Yeah.
And so the Twins were in Pittsburgh earlier this season. Lance Lynn made his season debut, very forgettable season debut at PNC Park. Colin Moran hit a grand slam off him. But you are going to be covering the Wednesday game.
Yeah.
What are you expecting to see, or what are your feeling? How do you cover this team differently now?
Yeah,
Minnesota Twins with how do we cover them now?
Yeah,
when the postseason's out of it, but we got more fun stories. Like Cole Stewart is up now. He started on Sunday. Probably will start again against Detroit here on, I think, Saturday. Do you switch your focus? Do you switch the angles? Yeah. How do you cover this team differently when they're 54-63 than if they were 63-54?
Yeah, I think going into the season, we actually had set aside a travel budget, and Pittsburgh would have actually been one of the more fun trips. Mm-hmm. I've been to the park once. I saw them play St. Louis, and this would be back when Mr. Pujols was a Cardinal. So that would
not recently.
Yeah, I believe it was 2011. Some of the nicest people you meet, like I think they were super excited to have out of town people who weren't from St. Louis.
Did you go to Primanti Brothers?
Yeah, so that's the famous.
Was it all it was cracked up to be?
Yeah, it's very good. It's a unique taste that like it's a good tasting sandwich. It certainly was not something I'd had before.
Or since.
Yeah, or since I think it's unique to the area, but it's on the water. The hockey stadium and the football stadium are actually on the same road, so there's a lot of bars over there. It's definitely it would have been a fun trip. It's something that even if the Twins aren't playing, it's worth it to get out there. Kind of a hidden gem, both of a city and a ballpark. But that doesn't matter as much now. Where I was going with that is, you were out in Chicago. You said that was your first trip, actually, to
Never
Chicago.
Been to Chicago before. Yeah. Hopefully get to go back again soon, or maybe even next year. But, I tell you what, taking in Wrigley Field as your first trip to Chicago, that's like dropping you in the deep end of the pool. Because you get off the highway, and it's like 20 minutes to drive 4 miles along little narrow city streets.
Yeah, it's truly in like a neighborhood.
Yeah, it's like if they had Target Field right where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, which
like in Dinkytown,
Minneapolis.
Like the whole area of the north side of Chicago is like Dinkytown.
Yeah. So we did some travel. I went out and covered the Sox. Stayed with my brother who's a med student and was like,
how do you handle your weird hours?
I see. The thing is, he has it too. So like
No, but I mean they weren't the same though.
No, exactly. So he would have to get up at 5. I woke him literally up in the middle of the night.
He's the early bird. You're the night owl.
Yeah, and it's honestly not even. It was just circumstantial. Like as a doctor, I don't want to get into this too much, but they literally just tell you when to work and you figure out when to sleep. So, that was just his hours at the time. But yeah, literally I'd get in there. I'd have to call him to unlock the place, go up there. 5 hours later, we both were up, had breakfast. Then I went back to sleep, woke up around 9, ended up, finding my way to the park. But either way, I mean, we did want to provide really good cover. I mean, we still want to cover really well, but wanted to do in-depth, kind of do some travel, maybe a unique angle. Still doing that, but for away games, we're now it's unlikely we'll travel, given that these games are becoming more and more meaningless, or essentially when they
less and less meaningful at the very least.
Yes, and at least in terms of the outcome of the game, I would say certain events, Cole Stewart's debut,
development is still going to be huge.
Yes,
it's just that fans are probably not going to click on our stories as much to see who won.
Yeah.
But rather, how did Cole Stewart look? How does Nick Gordon look if he comes up? That sort of thing.
Yeah, the outcomes of the game don't matter as much. However, it would have been great to know, I guess if we knew Cole Stewart was getting called up, maybe go out there. But either way.
I guess he had enough time to get 30 family members up there.
And I guess very loud. You could hear them kind of from the stands, which I mean, not
they're
unexpected.
Texan, man.
Yeah.
True,
and we'll talk. We'll break down kind of what we saw there.
Yeah.
But I just want to explain how we're doing our coverage. Now it's more kind of piecemeal, and it's how we kind of did it all season long. Even when this looked like maybe an 80. What did you say? I think I said 87. I don't remember what.
I said 91.
Yeah.
Right now it looks like about a 75 win.
Yeah. But even if they were in wild card contention, or when we thought they were, we still were trying to take little bite-sized things out. I remember before Mejia got hurt, I kind of talked about how he looked like he maybe, could take advantage of Lance Lynn being gone, or certainly, we'll focus on Cole Stewart, or you mentioned the prospects coming up, or just, I mean, even things like how does Maurer, who's the longest, tenured Twin, look down the stretch? Do we think that I don't think he'll go anywhere, but do you think he'll be in a Twins uniform next year? Or how about Polanco? Can he hold down short? Or how are Kepler and Rosario hitting? Or, whatever. I mean, I think we're trying to we focus less and less, as we said, on the outcome, more and more on that. And I think the other thing is we're going to try, the season's kind of dying out, but it'd be, originally we had talked about maybe going to Rochester, Chattanooga. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't make any promises on the podcast. But at the very least, we will look at what's happening there, what's happening in the minor leagues, because I think, we know with all these trades, they flooded, 11, 12 players into the system.
Yeah, something like that.
And it looks, generally speaking, and I know the Cubs strategy was to draft all position players, right, and not pitchers, and they'll pay for it. It's funny that the Twins really can't apply that strategy because they can't really have a Yu Darvish contract, or a big albatross contract. That
John
really,
Lester also.
Yeah,
they have two of them.
Yeah, you can't have
Jose Quintana, who they had to pay a ton to get to.
Yeah,
so they did a lot of things the way that the Twins might not do it.
Yeah, and I know people, cheap poll ads or whatever, you wrote about this on the site.
Oh man,
I don't see that. Look. We'll turn on the poll ads if they don't sign Buxton, or if they don't, if it's
that
superstar.
was my theory all along, by
the
way. Target Field was not to put the Twins in the top 10 of payroll. It was to keep the stars at home. The Johan Santanas, Joe Mauers. Joe Mauer was the first one. The Joe Nathans, the Justin Morneaus. And Morneau ended up signing, and Morneau is kind of like the number one with a bullet of how re-signing guys hurt the Twins because they couldn't afford him to get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the point I'm making here is it's funny when you look at the Twins. I still look at the Tyler J pick, and I'm like, that was weird. I know he had 4 pitches, but they took a college reliever.
Not only that, but he and Nick Gordon have not been worthy of their draft status.
Nick Gordon, however, it seems like rose really fast until he got AAA.
Yeah,
and
he's about a year level. I'm just saying, though, like you look at those guys, and they could have had Andrew Benintendi or any number of
J
guys.
draft.
Yeah, any number of guys after Gordon that were good too.
Yeah,
and it just was not. You don't know what they're thinking in the moment, and now especially, it's like you start kicking yourself because they could use help at a number of different spots, especially pitching.
Yeah,
and
where I stand on that, I think Gordon still could be a player, right? A major league player. What his upside is, I don't know. My point was more Tyler J. It was just interesting that they seem very convinced he'd become a starter, and he's kind of lingering in Double-A, right? He seems to be
he seems to be stagnating.
Yeah, stagnating is probably the better word there. And I think you look at Cole Stewart, who made his debut in Detroit. I think maybe people were a little surprised, given that we've seen sluggers.
Gonsalves is on the 40-man roster.
That Gonsalves was the guy I thought maybe they'd tap.
The only reason it wasn't is because Gonsalves had pitched the night before.
Yeah, and Stewart had to. He was 2 days off his regular.
He was scratched
schedule.
and then
Yeah.
By the way, after Nick Gordon, you've got Aaron Nola, who's one of the best young starters in the NL.
Yeah,
Kyle Freeland is with the Rockies. He's pretty darn good. Michael Conforto, really good corner outfielder. You got Trey Turner, who I think is the one that a lot of people lament just because they really thought he was going to be good. Sean Newcomb is dealing for the Braves right now. Touki Toussaint made his debut today in the big leagues. Then you get Bradley Zimmer, Matt Chapman, some of these guys that were never in the mix. So, I get it. If you look after Tyler J, which is the next year, so this is back-to-back years if he picks. After Tyler J, the next pick is Benintendi.
Yeah, no, I know that
Ian
one.
Happ to the Cubs.
Yeah.
If people were talking about if Kyle Gibson made sense for the Cubs this trade deadline.
Yeah.
If they would have offered Ian Happ, I would have driven Kyle to Chicago myself. I'm a big Kyle Gibson guy.
You've done that drive.
Yeah, exactly. Now, after that, it's a little more dicey. Every year you get closer to the year that you're in, you're going to have fewer big leaguers. But there's like James Caprielian, who got traded, I think, in the Sonny Gray trade. Yeah. You've got Brady Aiken, who has not panned out. Walker Buehler is in the big leagues with the Dodgers. He's been up and down. Mike Soroka with the Braves also. Actually, I think Soroka is one of the only 3 guys in the big leagues that were born after Bartolo Colon's big league debut.
That's amazing.
How's that for trivia? But, you look at these picks and see, we're second-guessing them from the standpoint
It's hindsight 2020.
Yeah, if I knew Andrew Benintendi was going to be a stud, you take it.
I think what I'm getting at is anytime you do this, it's process probably over. Right, it's process over results.
Taking the college reliever, thinking you're going to turn him into a starter.
Yeah, and in the high school starter, tend not to pan out. Right, you just have to wait 5 years as opposed to.
It's all about what you're willing to risk. I'd seen sometime there was only a handful of guys who had played college ball who were in the Hall of Fame. So if you swing for the fences, you're more likely to get a big time star. Whereas the best college players you'll ever see are the David Prices and Justin Verlanders, who are great players, but when you start at 22, truly great players look at Juan Soto, 19, he's in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Mike Trout was, I think, 21. These are guys who would be college juniors otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's where part of the luster falls off, is that they have to wait 3 years no matter how good they are.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I feel like, and I've actually, I haven't talked to Falvey a little bit about it and stuff. Really there is not a lot of sense in I know that the trend weirdly is that everyone should tank because the Astros and Cubs did. The Astros were way ahead of everyone with the sabermetric.
They also missed on a lot of picks. Brady Aiken.
Yeah, and the guy from Stanford, pitcher.
Mark Appel, who they ended up trading in the deal to get Ken Giles, who ended up being a mess too.
Just a bunch of stuff in the face, right, or something.
No, they traded him to the Blue Jays for someone who punched someone else in the face.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's all not good.
Yeah, not great.
But and the Cubs went out and got a GM who won in Boston, right? Broke one curse.
Did they pay him $10 million a year or something?
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's something I guarantee you Derek Falvey's not making anything close to that. You could get Derek Falvey and Thad Levine probably 3 times over for what the Cubs are paying.
Yeah. No, but they went out and got him, and they went out and got the best manager, right?
Or at least think he's making $5 million a year too.
So my point is that not everyone's going to be the Cubs and the Astros, and while you do want those it seems like the smartest teams use the 20s really well and make smart trades and it's kind of nature. And I know that the nature is important, but nature and nurture. Mm-hmm. Going back to Royce Lewis, right? Probably the most important thing they've done. We can argue it's maybe all these trades, but drafting number 1 overall. Hunter Green was the big pick, right?
That was the sexy pick.
Right.
And now he's out for the year with a sprained elbow.
And so my
Can you imagine the takes from Twins fans?
Yeah.
We can't have nice things.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of that, by the way.
So my point is it seems like when the Twins draft position players, they have relative success. I
mean, Nick Gordon's their number 3 prospect right now on MLB.com. So
and he's hitting a little bit. I know I'm tracking very closely.
He really had a nice year at Chattanooga last year, tailed off.
Yeah.
Really started out strong this year, has tailed off at Rochester. There's some questions about size, body type, durability for how he...
But he has the bloodlines, right?
Bloodlines, and I mean, he's a good athlete, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But is he a franchise cornerstone? And that's what you hope to get when you draft 4th, 5th, whatever overall. And the question is he that kind of player? And the answer is almost overwhelmingly no.
Yeah.
So is any second baseman other than the choice few, Robinson Cano, Chase Utley, Dustin Pedroia. I mean,
Dozier for a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, it was Ian Kinsler, franchise cornerstone. I've never thought of him.
Yeah.
When the Rangers had him, they had Michael Young, they had Hank Blaylock, they had all those guys.
It's a good piece. Yeah.
So I think he's going to land at second base. I think they like Polanco at short. I think Royce Lewis is going to play short eventually. So I don't think Gordon is that type of player, and that's why picking him that early hurts. You're
more confident now. I mean, I thought the deal with Lewis is that he'd potentially go to the outfield. Do you feel like what you've seen or...
No, nothing's changed in that front.
Yeah.
And Keith Law addressed that in one of his chats recently, that nothing has changed for him on that front. He said the bat's advanced, the glove is quite a ways behind, and he's got a lot of work to do to be, what he said, passable, in quotes, at short. And so I'm not as concerned because the Twins are going to give him every chance. They've gone with Jorge Polanco this long. I mean, Polanco...
Do you worry about his arm?
For Polanco?
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, because I think the toughest play for him is the backhanded play in the hole where your arm, I mean, I don't know how much stronger your arm can actually get. You know, we saw Ben Revere all those years. Like, if you lift weights, your arm doesn't get stronger. If you work on long throws, does your arm ever get stronger? I don't think so. I think you either have it or you don't. It's like, for the same reason a pitcher... outside of their legs, I mean, if they get bigger upper body, they're not going to have better arms and
but
stuff.
Gordon has an opportunity now to be a major league player. I think it's the bat, it seems like, is the...
I don't think the glove is much to write home about either.
Really?
I think the package is just such low floor, or high floor, rather, that you have a big league regular on a second division team, which is to say the current Minnesota Twins are a second division team.
But we haven't even talked about Kirilloff.
The number 2 prospect right now.
Larnach? How do you say that?
Larnach is the number 6 prospect.
Who hit his way, it seems, out of Elizabethton, which would be rookie, right? And
he's at Cedar Rapids now.
Cedar Rapids. And that Cedar Rapids team was Kirilloff, Lewis, who not only seems like an athlete.
Yeah, now they're both in Fort Myers.
Also, Lewis is playing hurt, right? Isn't that kind of like the...
I think he had some, like, tendinitis in a knee or something. Yeah, I mean, they said it was nothing serious, but... it's something to monitor. You never want that.
He looks like he's good, and he seems to have the attitude of maybe he's like the I don't want to Torrey Hunter's eye stand.
No,
but
but
you know what I mean?
I think you go Kirby Puckett, Torrey Hunter, Royce Lewis.
Yeah,
those
which
guys
is crazy.
Are franchise-altering clubhouse personalities. And there's not one in that clubhouse right now outside of Miguel Sano who they don't trust to be that personality. If you had Miguel Sano's talent with Royce Lewis's personality, you would have the best player in the major leagues as far as a clubhouse quote and on the field.
I mean, how about this? I brought this up because I think Sano, we'll get back to the prospects, although we still should discuss, even though they're not prospects.
He's the age of a prospect.
Yeah, and Buxton.
24 or 25.
So, but my thought on Sano is he should replace Escobar's production. That should be a given, right?
If you looked at the numbers Escobar put up, and you said at the beginning of the year that the Twins' third baseman will hit 280 with a 340 on base and a 500 slugging, you'd say, oh, well, Miguel Sano bounced back, rather than, oh, Miguel Sano couldn't hit himself out of a wet paper sack after a hot start, got sent back to Fort Myers, and Eduardo Escobar hit like that. You would have never in a million years thought that.
And again, I'm making a judgment based on, I actually was there when they traded for Escobar, and everyone was like, and I think fair enough, was like Liriano, who still is with Detroit, right? He's still...
Yeah, Tyler Austin homered off him on Saturday.
But I mean, you had a guy who looked like a lights out, potential
At
ace.
the time, he didn't, though.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean,
and he was a pending free agent.
Yes. Either way, you traded a guy like that for a lefty who was not Pedro Hernandez, right?
Yeah, don't besmirch the name of Pedro Hernandez. Who are you to doubt Pedro Hernandez? St. Paul Saints legend.
Yeah,
we're so close to where Midway Stadium used to be.
Yeah,
and here you are besmirching the name of Pedro.
Watch, I'm going to get struck down. Yeah,
and no Mark Hamburger though. Let's
yeah.
Anyway, so and
Escobar.
I thought Escobar wasn't going to be anything. You look at his minor league numbers, and in fact, in 2013 or maybe it was even 2014, I said to Terry Ryan, are you guys envisioning Escobar as a long-term utility player? Do you think he can handle short, whatever, blah, 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 just something like that? And Terry said, just you wait, he's going to be an everyday shortstop in this league. And I thought, come on, Terry. Really?
And he was close. He was an everyday third baseman, potentially.
But, I mean, he could play short and start for probably 15 teams in this league.
Yeah, that was as much as... I don't want to go down the Terry Ryan rabbit hole. He did some things.
We'd be there all night. We'd be there all night.
Yeah, but the thing about Escobar is you could like him almost without reservation, right? He seemed like a good family guy. He loved Fogo de Chao. He had the little... Caballo.
Horse for those who don't speak Spanish.
In the locker room. He truly, I remember talking to him early on, and he didn't have much English. Rosario was the same way. He literally, I asked him just simply, like, why, what is it about you and the energy you bring that people like you? And he just kind of smiled, and he was like, people like me. And I think that maybe how he would respond today, but he certainly could elaborate more in English.
Sure, but here's the deal. Like, there's players that give you quotes, and you're like, yeah, if they saw me in public, they would pretend they don't know me, or or they just wouldn't see me.
Yeah.
And you get this. You got the feeling that Escobar was not that kind of guy. Like, he was the kind of guy who what you see is what you got all the time, whether it was
very authentic. Yeah.
After a 10-3 loss or a 10-3 win, you were going to get the real Eduardo Escobar.
And he I was there in Chicago. We said we traveled early on. When this was actually when Castro, we learned the injury was more serious, and
the meniscus,
just to give you a frame of reference, and right before they played St. Louis, and I asked Escobar, I said, are you extra kind of excited given that he loves Ozzie and Ozzie was there? He's got all his White Sox teammates who allegedly cried when they heard he was traded, and just, this is your old team. This is the team that brought you up. And he goes, no, I'm just always kind of like this. And I think that's true. And I think the thing with that is Sano has a little bit of that in him. There is a little bit of a fun-loving energy. There was certainly reason. Yeah, he hit the home runs, and I think there is something to having a captivating player in the middle of your lineup that if the game's on in the bar, you have to stop and watch his at-bat. However, I also thought coming up and when I saw him as a younger player, and I mean, still a younger player, but when he, before he had all this major league experience, he could have some of those qualities, and it's hard to like him the way you like Escobar because of what happened in the offseason. Yeah,
there's a lot of layers there.
Because he seems undisciplined and was overweight, because he just didn't seem to be taking at bats seriously, as in he just seemed to be swinging absent of the situation. Like, he's just looking to clobber a ball, into North Dakota or whatever, instead of maybe firing one through the gap or advancing. I'm not looking for him to bunt, but like advancing the runner. He just seemed to be riding the all. It's crazy that he was an all-star last year, right?
Not that long ago.
And think of the praise,
like literally 13 months ago,
right? And to use this year's all-star, and I know people think Rosario should have been there. I think you wrote at the time, you were like, he's not getting in. Either way, he had a good season, but you look at Barrios, and I like that he was named the all-star this year because he's similar to Escobar. I think has way more upside. I think will mean more to the franchise. I think he's one of those guys you want him to be a Twin for life if he continues to be your ace. I thought maybe he was too small to be an ace. There was questions maybe of he's not like a Romero that just seems to be able to, he could take your head off with a pitch or whatever. It's more the looping curves.
Romero's
and all this.
Kind of a badass, let's be honest.
Right, and Barrios seems more like he's kind of a technician, right? He kind of.
Yeah,
it seems as though he's remote controlling the ball sometimes.
He's basically 2 steps ahead of you in a chess game.
Yeah.
On the mound, rather than just blowing it by you and breaking off a curveball or slider.
I'm sure you've seen this in the locker room. The way he takes care of his body, the way he's just fit. He seems to be every little technique he can use to get loose. He seems to use it.
I think he's a baseball junkie.
I remember early on, again, another player that didn't speak much English. I remember asking him, he had a PS4 in his locker room. He's sitting not far from Trevor May, who plays just about every video game under the sun, right? Literally plays online through Twitch and stuff. And I asked Barrios, I said, what do you play? And he goes, oh, baseball. And I was like, no, on your PlayStation. He goes, oh, baseball. I'm like, but no, baseball. And I think Buxton's the same way. Buxton loves the game. I know he got Pujols and Trout to sign a jersey for him, and loved Jim Edmonds growing up, which is funny given that he was not in that market. But I get the
game
impression,
recognized game, man.
And that's the thing. And again, Buck's another player who looks like he really takes care of himself. But Berrios, there's no question he does what he can. And Molitor said this around the time he was an All-Star. And this is why I think you can. It seems like you can go on with this guy. Like he's pushing trucks around and stuff, right? In the online videos. Yep. And I don't think it's all show. I think that dude has just pure raw strength and kind of he'll make mistakes, but the wherewithal to be a star player. Sano needs to get to a place, and I know that's why they sent him down to Fort Myers, where you can believe he is committed fully to being great, because otherwise the only two players right now I see that should be in a Twins uniform until the day they leave the game would be, to me, Byron Buxton. I can get why that is, even though he's had a tough year, and Berrios.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
I mean, Romero can make a case for himself, right?
Rosario, too. Polanco, Kepler. I mean, there's all guys on the fringes.
Yeah, but I mean,
the problem is that, and let's get back to how this year has come to this point. You needed guys to step up to be part of that conversation. Jorge Polanco, PEDs. Max Kepler, not quite there. Byron Buxton, injuries and migraines. Miguel Sano, you've got all kinds of issues. And so you had a handful of guys who needed to step up there.
Yeah.
Now, I had a tweet about a month ago, basically how the division was there for the Twins taking. Cleveland has not been unbeatable by any stretch of the mind, and that's when they have 3 of the top 10 pitchers in baseball, if you ask Bill James. Trevor Bauer, Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco. 3 of the top 10 pitchers in the game, and the Twins still had, I would have guessed, an even money chance. Now, you consider Sano, you consider Polanco, you consider Irvin Santana, who we've been not really talking about much with the finger thing. Who am I missing? I mean, you've got Brian Dozier having a tough season. You have Joe Mauer not quite being all the way there. You've got Jason Castro's meniscus given away on him. You have basically nobody outside of Eddie Rosario and Eduardo Escobar as consistent offense for 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Any number of those things alone can derail a season. They can take you from 95 wins to 85, which is a 10-win gap. It doesn't seem like that much, but it's the difference between playoffs in pretty much every spot except for the Central Division in the AL. That's a huge deal. When all those things happen at once, you literally have to step back and say, this is not our year. So with all the people pissed about all the trades that happened, it was coming to grips with reality that keeping Ryan Presley was not going to make the difference this year in any sense. Brian Dozier is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, no matter what the last uniform is that he takes off in September or October. Eduardo Escobar, same deal. Zach Duke, same deal. Lance Lynn, same deal. People who are upset about these trades they lack critical thinking. I don't mind people being critical. You know, people get mad at me because they think that I'm reinforcing the notion that the Pohlad shouldn't spend, which is nonsense because
it's not your money.
It's not my money. It's not their money, and it was the season. It's the highest payroll in Twins history.
Yeah.
And I know they're saying, oh, what about revenues? What about where the rest of the league is? All I'm saying is you can't call them cheap after they spent more than they ever have. They literally had the video game free agency where they signed a whole bunch of players you'd actually heard of. Lance Lynn.
Morrison.
They traded for they got Morrison. They traded for Odorizzi. They signed Rodney. They signed Zach Duke. All these guys that we've heard of before if you're even a moderate baseball fan. They literally had a free agent period that we had never seen in Twins history as far as movement. They have had a trade deadline the same way. Like Randball Stew on Twinkie Town, one of the best parody satire writers you could ever want to read, wrote that Terry Ryan's still not certain it's legal to make that many trades at the deadline.
Yeah.
Like it was like a what in tarnation. You know what I mean? I can hear Terry saying those things, which cracks me up.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've literally done everything necessary to make this team win, and when it didn't work, they tore it back down without sacrificing future payroll, without hurting the bottom line in terms of organizational talent. When I say bottom line, people are going to think I'm talking about the Pohlad's wallet.
Yeah.
Organizational talent. That water level continues to rise.
They're arguably top 5, right?
Well, Jim Callis of MLB, Jonathan Mayo have them at 6th. I think Baseball America has them at 6th. They were in the 20s a year ago. And
because Buxton and Sano are prospects.
Because they graduated. And so when you graduate your Buxtons, your Sanos, your Keplers, look at this roster right now when everyone's healthy. You've got arguably 6 or 7 guys in that 23 to 27 range, all coming into the primes of their career. They're cheap. They're motivated. They have their careers to still salvage, some of them. They're at an age where they should be hungry. And that's where when you have $31 million committed to next year, you find that cornerstone. Whoever it's going to be. Whoever you identify.
And that's, in my argument, the two players that are not this year with Buxton, but with Barrios. Barrios is making a case for himself, I believe.
As far as what?
A cornerstone. Like
he's there. He's already there.
Yeah.
He's already there for me.
And let's stop on Buxton for a second, because I think it's important not to neglect. We've talked about Sano, the two players that were at one time the crown jewel of their.
So you're talking about Buxton and Sano, which is what Kirilloff and Lewis are right now.
Yeah. So let's pause on Buxton for a second. The reason why I believe he still is in the mix as kind of Mr. Twin, if you want to call him that or whatever, a cornerstone, is defensively he's still ridiculous, right? I mean, and I think that goes without saying. He's still fast enough. If he get on base, he I always joke that it's like a Mario warp, but it does seem like it's right. He's
the green tubes.
Yeah. And it comes down to he's got a hit, and again, people are going to be upset that he followed a ball off his toe, and he couldn't play, and then he played poorly, and then he couldn't play again. I buy the explanation that he could not put weight on that toe, and every movement in a swing is important.
Oh, he's got a high maintenance swing. I mean, there's no question about it.
And it's just not. I understand in football, like Julio Jones can roll an ankle or whatever, have an injured ankle and go off for 100 yards or whatever. Or
he can also go out there and be a decoy.
Right. No, I mean, but my point is that there's just more technicalities to a swing, I think, than. I understand it's hard to create separation in football or whatever. But
it all depends on the player, but Byron Buxton has a high maintenance, high volatility swing, and it mattered. Look at his numbers. I mean, even if you didn't expect him to repeat the second half last year, he's like 160 when he got hurt. There's just no way that was going to happen. Yeah, 156 was his batting average, 28 strikeouts, 3 walks.
But we've seen those spurts where he seems unreal, right? 330 or something for a couple games, or
literally the second half last year, he was played at a superstar level. He played at what would have been like a 6-win player because of largely defense.
So, and what the comparison I would use is, I think Twins fans could be rightfully upset that Aaron Hicks was dealt for John Ryan Murphy, right? And we understand the value. They need a catcher. We can get to Garver in a second here, but like adding a catcher is not a bad idea, but think of Hicks and the frustration people had with him, and Buxton is that much better.
He's light years more talented than Aaron Hicks at this age, at any age.
Yeah, and so my point there is Hicks, they always use the Hunter comparison, and I think that's fair because Torrey Hunter, I think we think is better than he was.
He also was a slow burn, though. Like, it took a long time to come around.
And I think you got to think of Buxton as just another. Like, he becomes unfair if he can hit. It's unfair to have a guy that fast in the outfield on the base pass, potentially at the top of your lineup.
Well, so what's amazing, though, is the number of people who lament the next David Ortiz getting away are the ones that will, in the next breath, say Byron Buxton is a bust and should be shipped off.
Yeah.
And there's, like, the irony there is so thick, you could spread it like peanut butter.
No, the next David Ortiz is not Kenny Vargas, who's hitting 210 in AAA or whatever.
Yeah.
It's Byron Buxton.
It's not because of a skill set thing. It's just because of future Hall of Fame talent. Like, Byron Buxton is the most physically gifted player to ever walk through those doors in the Twins organization.
Yeah.
I will fight anybody who says otherwise. There's been some great athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Winfield, when he was 40 years
For
old,
sure.
I mean, the guy had been drafted in 3 sports or whatever.
Yeah.
But Byron Buxton is the most physically gifted player to ever play for the Minnesota
and the one that could play the longest, right?
But whatever. I'm just saying most physically gifted, and if you give up on him, you're an idiot.
Yeah. So in the comparison I'll make, this is the only comparison I'll make between Buxton and Garver, because Garver is not that kind of upside. Buxton, has a major league talent with the outfield. Garver actually, I think, has it at bat, right? As a hitter. I mean, he's shown...
I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying that... and I want them to go sign a catcher this offseason.
Yeah,
it's not enough. Garver is not a good enough player where you say, we're set at catcher, we can look elsewhere.
No. So I
got pushback like that on Reddit, though.
Oh, I know.
We've got Mitch Garver. We can look in other positions. Okay, if you think Mitch Garver's good enough there, you're not signing a shortstop because then you must think Jorge Polanco is good enough. You're not signing a second baseman because you think Nick Gordon's good enough. You're not signing a first baseman because you think Brent Rooker, Tyler Austin, Kenny
Right.
Vargas, for crying out loud. You can't treat your prospects like they can't be pushed aside for great players if you ever want to have a team that has championship aspirations in this day and age. In this day and age, you need to have that kind of team with how good the American League is right now. There's no question they need to go out and get one more very good player to supplement this existing core.
Let's assess their catcher situation and then talk about what you wrote on the site and who you want to target.
Their catching situation right now is Mitch Garver, who is such an iffy defender that he's ceding time, even if it's just once every series, to a guy with an OPS that brings you into town from the west side. Pick 494, pick 394, whichever one you want. And I love Bobby Wilson to death. He's one of my favorite guys in that clubhouse. But offensively, he doesn't give you anything. That's how much development Mitch Garver needs to make defensively. Throw Bobby Wilson out of the picture, and you've got a catcher who has now twice dealt with meniscus issues on the wrong side of 30. How much can you actually count on Jason Castro next year?
And
in the walk year of his deal.
Yeah. So I don't know how much more needs to be said. I guess what I'm getting at is Garver's going to give himself a chance to improve defensively at the major league level because what we've seen from his bat, I know the overall numbers aren't great, but if you look at, the last 2 months or something like that, he's showing signs that it's not a flash in the pan. He can hit.
I would have him as the backup catcher, first baseman, emergency left fielder.
Yeah.
And
kind of what that Herman probably should have been.
Yeah, but I don't know how you put that on a bench where – so we live in an era where benches are 3 players deep, which blows my mind. Pitching staffs are 13 players deep.
Yeah.
But, I mean, can you really have a guy who only plays corners and backup catcher if you still need to have Jason Castro on your roster? Does that exist? Can that exist?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is your solution? Talk about the player you want to add and talk about the solution. If you got your wish, how would you construct the roster?
So you need to go out and get Yasmani Grandal. Literally the best offensive and defensive catcher on the market. He does both things very well. He's 31 years, or he's 29. He'll be 30 at the end of this, November or whatever. So I give him a 5-year deal. You might have to give him a 5-year deal. 5-year deals are scary as hell. Russell Martin is barely hitting his weight in Toronto right now and still has a year left on his deal. He signed for 5 years and $82 million after the 13 season. You've got Brian McCann, who signed a 5-year deal with the Yankees, got traded after year 3. Now he's battling knee issues. But if you look at what both of those guys provided, they gave their teams about $60 whatever million in value. At the end of the day, $20 million in lost value doesn't suck on a free agent contract. Everyone's going to say, well, Brian McCann was a better offensive player. They're almost identical in OPS plus. They're almost exactly the same hitter. Both are good defenders. And look what the Yankees did 3 years in. They still got 2 top 100 prospects, and I think it's Albert Abreu and Domingo Acevedo, I think were the 2 names. They have 2 guys who are top 100 prospects that they got for Brian McCann, who was still owed like 2 years and $30 million. Now, if the Twins sign Grandal and then 3 years down the road, Ben Rortvedt figures it out, which is not going to happen. But Ryan Jeffers, let's just say Jeffers, the guy they took this year in the second round. If he develops into what they want in a catcher, you flip Grandal. Castro is long gone by that point because he's only signed through next year. For me, what I do is sign Grandal before I start answering calls on if Castro's healthy, if Garver's available, whatever. If someone wants to give me something for Garver, I let them because I can't gamble that a catcher learns defense. I can't gamble that a catcher is going to get better defensively at the age of 27. He might, and it might make me look dumb, but at the end of the day, I just don't have enough belief that he can be a big league caliber backup catcher that's not just an offensive-minded guy. Off the top of your head, how many offensive-minded backup catchers ever can you name?
That's a good point.
Most of them are your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Brian Rortvedt, your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Most of them are your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Those are the guys. Your Henry Blanco, your Greg Myers, your Henry Blanco, your Brian Rortvedt. Th Miguel Olivo, your John Buck, who was supposed to be a starter, but your defenders, your Drew Butera. Drew Butera is like a cockroach, man. He's like the Marcus Sherrills of the big leagues.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be in the big leagues for 2 weeks when they brought him up in 2010 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's still kicking today as the backup to Salvador Perez.
Yeah.
Talk about a great job, by the way.
Yeah.
Salvador Perez never misses time. Like he had one injury and now he's missed some time, but before that he played 130 games a year. So it'd be nice to have Castro as your backup. I know he's making $7 million, but if you look at the payroll from a forest instead of the trees standpoint, you can stomach 1 year of $7 million for your backup catcher. Or maybe he has value, you trade him, and then you go sign a Jimenez or bring back Bobby Wilson. Again, with the idea that they're only going to start 40, 45 games. You want Grandal to play every day. Grandal can play first base when he's not catching. You've got options. And Grandal offensively, power, takes his walks. That can be your cleanup hitter from day one next year. Gives you a formidable middle of the lineup guy. He's a switch hitter. But then you've got Kepler, you've got Sano, you've got Rosario, you've got Grandal. Everyone says, well, why not Machado? Why not Bryce Harper? First of all, they're not coming to Minnesota. Even if the money's right, the market's just not right for that. Grandal, I think money will talk. Grandal, to me, is not that marketable kind of player that needs the advertising, the endorsements, and all that stuff. I'm
coming from LA,
burning down the house here.
Yeah.
Coming from LA, I understand.
Yeah.
And people say, well, why won't LA sign him? They're trying to stay under the salary cap, or the luxury tax,
which is
luxury tax. They have Will Smith, who they really like in AA or AAA. And then Austin Barnes can platoon with him until he's ready. They want to sign Machado. They want to take their chances at Harper. They may need to re-sign Kershaw, who can opt out. So they already have their issues, and they cannot. They're not going to be able to sign Grandal, I don't believe. I just don't think it makes sense for them. People say, Brandon, why not a young catcher? Why not? Maybe they'll sign Grandal, and you can trade for Will Smith. You can't trade for a rookie catcher on a team that needs to win now. A rookie catcher needs time, just like we've seen with Mitch Garver, who, for all intents and purposes, is a rookie right now. You need a guy who's ready-made to catch and help you at the big leagues. That's why Jason Castro was such a big leaps and bounds better than Juan Centeno and Ryan Dome. I mean, I don't even know who caught with Centeno that year.
I don't know either.
I don't either. I mean, that's how forgettable Twins catchers have been since Joe Mauer came out from behind the plate. You need a veteran. You need an MLB-ready veteran who can help you. If you have to give him 5 years and $90 million, you do it. From there, you fill second base cheaply, whether it's Logan Forsythe, Brian Dozier, Eduardo Escobar, Ian Kinsler, Neil Walker. There's tons of second basemen. One will fall to you on a 1-year deal for $4 million. Maybe Forsythe, who's having a really nice rejuvenation. Yeah. Someone who can be a bridge to Nick Gordon. And then you probably sign a closer. We've got a couple Twitter questions about that we'll get to at the end of the show.
Yep.
You start with catcher. A catcher can be the foundation of your entire big league team, and you need to go get Grandal.
The argument, this is Mike Gelfand, who edits us, covered the Twins in the 70s.
I did not care for his columm, by the way.
I know. We can that's actually a good thing to finish on because that'll be big picture.
We'll do that, and then we'll finish with questions.
So because I think we've touched on just about everyone.
If not, we'll be back again in a few days.
Yeah. I think. Trying to remember where I was going before we got sidetracked with Mike Gelfand.
Who even knows?
Grandal, where was I going with this?
Oh, you were talking about. Didn't you want to talk about Gelfand's article about how the Twins are basically rebuilding again?
Yeah, let's go to that. Maybe it'll hit me. There was something
jog your memory, maybe.
Jog my memory. But anyway, so we all kind of took a stance on where we think the Twins will be.
And again, I have no problem publishing what he says because he's obviously very well respected, and he believes what he says.
I remember the point. So he said Lance Lynn. So the thing about Lance Lynn is that came to spring training late, got a value on him because he was supposed to get a 4-year deal, right? Didn't get that.
He said that was the only offer he had was the Twins.
Yeah, and the Cardinals passed on him, which would mean something given that they...
Talk about a bullet dodge. The initial offer was 2 years.
Yeah.
As far as Doogie said, anyway.
Yeah.
Who wants 2 years of Lance Lynn? No, thank you.
So, and he's had success in New York in part because the second start was against Chicago. But
I mean, if you pull out his 3 best starts in Minnesota, it would have probably been similar to that. I don't believe in him for a second.
So the point, something interesting though is he had Yachty the whole time in St. Louis.
Yep.
here he's got Bobby Wilson, he's got Garver, he's young, he's kind of got this mixed bag.
Probably threw to Castro a couple times.
Yeah, and in New York, they have a contending team.
I mean, he's throwing to Gary Sanchez, probably Austin Romine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing perfect, but I get.
Yeah, but it may help him. In some capacity. Anyways, the point is I understand the gamble. I think if you look at a team how they're constructed, you got to have the starting rotation, especially 1, 2, maybe 3. Like Cleveland has guys that are lights out for the playoffs, and then it's up the middle, right? It's hopefully Buxton at center. It's who's at second and short.
I mean, Polanco's at short. There's no question in my mind they're going to be okay with that.
Yeah, no, but and then
the biggest question for me is who plays third and first next year.
Which potentially Sano and then
Sano's one of them, but which one? Where's Joe Mauer? If he did, I mean, Joe Mauer, the fact that he's in such a funk right now tells me that he may not be able to hold up for another big league season.
Yeah, and
then maybe Sano's your first baseman, and you sign Eduardo Escobar to play third. Maybe I don't sign Escobar to play second because I don't want to spend that much money for a guy playing second base.
Yeah,
if he's going to play third for 2 or 3 years, fine. If he's going to play second base, there's so many decent second basemen. I play for a bounce back from Neil Walker. I really don't have any interest in bringing Dozier back because I don't think he wants to be back here either.
And Escobar, who knows, maybe gets a taste and
Escobar's going to get a 3-year deal for $35 million.
Yeah, and he may want to go with a contender like Arizona, but
no, they don't. They won't want him back. I mean, got Jake Lamb, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, a contending team. So yes, there are question marks, but you usually look up the middle, right? You look at catcher, second, short, center, and perhaps by dropping that center field piece in without really breaking the bank, by dropping the catcher in without breaking the bank, you start to put a structure in place. Nick Gordon becomes the second baseman. I mean, whatever. But
I would go up to $100 million for Grandal. That's how much I believe he can help this team.
Yeah, which is great. I mean,
a great defensive catcher.
He signed through 35, then 34,
age 35. Well, no, he's 29 this year, so 30, 31, 32, 33, 30, 34.
Yeah.
If he falls off at 34, you've got a Victor Martinez on your hands.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
He's caught like 700 big league games. It's about, somebody was saying, I was looking up, it's like half as many as some guys similar age, like McCann at that time. So he's had some issues with injuries, but his knees should not be shot like a lot of these 30-plus-year-old catchers have been. So for me, it's Grandal.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you want to sign a starter, which I don't really know if they need, if Pineda's back, Santana's going to be probly gone. They could bring Santana back cheap, whatever. So for me, there's a lot of questions. Should we dive into the questions here? Or what do you got?
You want to dive in the questions and then finish with Gelfand's article and where we stand?
Yeah, we'll come full circle with that. So Corey Engelhart says, you have mentioned Grandal as a potential target. If they are looking at the trade market, especially for pitching, who do you have? Also, quick follow-up. Trevor Rosenthal, what do you think of him being part of the 2019 bullpen? I mean, Rosenthal is a minor league deal, whatever. He's missed this whole season with Tommy John, I think it is. And even when he was healthy, he was like a 12 strikeout, 4 walk. I don't love guys with high velocity, high exertion, high walk rate. It just doesn't do much for me. So, I mean, I'd give him a look, but I'm not going to break my back for him financially. And you wouldn't have to, but I don't see it. As far as trade market, I mean, if you can get Marcus Stroman, I'm all about that. I want a guy who's got some control as far as years of control, but I don't know that teams are trading those guys. Toronto is probably more going to reload than reboot because of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. They've got some youngsters who are really good. So I don't know. If they can find a guy like that, a guy with 2 or 3 years of control that's better than Jake Odorizzi, sure. I just don't know that that's out there, and I think they're going to ask for a Kirilloff or a Royce Lewis back. The Chris Archer trade, would that have made sense for the Twins? Not particularly.
No, and the thing is, at the end of the day, this team, as much as it'd be great, let's say they alternate universe, they're a wild card team, right? In the 87, 88, 89, 90 win team.
Basically repeat of last year.
Maybe then you do something crazy and you try to give him a shadow. God knows if he'd actually come. But maybe then you go nuts, right?
Yeah, but then you're committed to him at
I know, at that age.
Short?
And
you're going to have to sign him to an 8 or 10 year deal with a 3-year opt-out. If he doesn't perform, you've got Jason Hayward on your hands.
Yeah.
Jason Hayward didn't perform, and now he's going to opt in.
So my point there is you maybe take the risk, a high end risk, if you think that's what you need to get to division leader, contender kind of ish, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it.
That's when you.
And the reason why, even if all things were the same, the money is going to be more significant to Machado and Harper. The Twins are more well stocked in right field and shortstop.
No, and
it's just they're both. It's not to say that you wouldn't push aside a guy for Bryce Harper. You absolutely would, but you have to factor in where your organization is in those spots financially when you're the Twins, and that's why Grandal makes sense to me. That's why Harper doesn't. Again, I'm not saying Max Kepler is too good to push aside or trade, but you've got Kirilloff, you've got Larnach, you've got Rosario, you've got depth.
Rooker,
and again, you can trade. You can trade all those guys. I'm not saying I wouldn't push them aside, but when you're picking who you're going to invest in long term, the shortstop makes way more sense to me than the right fielder, and the catcher makes the most sense to me. Look at this team catcher-wise. Their best catching prospect is like number 27 on their list.
Yeah.
Get the freaking catcher.
Agreed. And I look at it from the pitching side. I guess I would like to see Sligers. To me, I was not thrilled. He's an interesting, really tall, but doesn't throw hard.
Doesn't do anything for me. But all due respect to him.
But Gonsalves, because of where he's drafted, Stewart, Romero. I'm trying to think if I'm missing someone.
And that's 2 back end guys, and then Romero's probably a 2.
So my point is, I think I'm not saying that they don't need pitching. I think that I'd like to see what those guys are.
They have enough bodies pitching wise because Trevor May needs a chance, Michael Pineda needs a chance, Kyle Gibson's got another year of control. You got Odorizzi, got Barrios.
So my point is, it seems like they have enough of those 3, 4, 5s.
I think you've got 8 guys who can start in the big leagues, and then you've got guys like Felix Jorge that are still in the mix.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to add a starter unless it's a Charlie Morton or I don't think you can afford to add a Patrick Corbin, who's going to be one of the more highly contested guys, or a Dallas Keuchel.
So my point is, this team still needs to draft and develop to succeed.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. Target field, it's a wonderful place. It doesn't change that. And I think that the reason why I like the Forsyths of the world is not because of their upside or their potential long term, but because instead of just handing the job to Nick Gordon, you're saying you got to beat someone, right?
They represent a safety net.
And Jake Odorizzi, in some ways, they're telling Romero and Gonsalves and all this, you got to be better than him at the very least.
Yep. Anytime you can make that competition, it's a good thing.
Next question.
Next question is from Dinger Hitter 9. Will the Twins go the fast track with Kirilloff and Lewis? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're both going to be at Chattanooga sometime next year.
Kirilloff literally didn't skip a beat going up a level, right?
And missing all last year.
Yeah. And Lewis,
these guys are on the fast track. Lewis will be the opening day shortstop on 2020.
Yeah.
A year from this next opening day. That's the Joe Mauer path. I keep saying that. I mean, it could be earlier. Certainly possible. But I'm saying that's going to be the path for him. And I think Kirilloff is 2 or 3 months behind that, which is extremely fast. So, yes, they'll be on the fast track.
I don't have much to add. It's been fun tracking just minor league reports.
Viking King 888 wants to know who I would look at for outside options for closer next year. So I have the list up. Cody Allen is interesting. I think you could consider Brad Brock on the cheap. Uris Familia, Kelvin Herrera. Maybe, I mean, I like Nate Jones. They're gonna exercise his option in Chicago. Sean Kelly's a decent reliever. Joe Kelly's a decent reliever. Craig Kimbrell's a free agent.
Interesting.
31 years old, so he's probably getting $16 million a year for 4 years. You've got Francisco Liriano. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
That would scare some people.
I'm just kidding. And then it's like Adam Ottavino. David Robertson would be really interesting. I don't know what his numbers look like this year, but semi-interesting. Joaquim Soria might be interesting, but he's 35. Adam Warren, I probably wouldn't look at him. As far as left-handed relievers, you got Zach Britton, the Orioles guy. Yep. I might look at him. Sean Doolittle's got a club option for $6 million, so that's getting exercised. Andrew Miller would be also interesting. Justin Wilson. The Twins had interest in Justin Wilson when he got traded by the Tigers to the from the Yankees to the Tigers. Is that right? Yeah. Yankees to the Tigers. The Twins had interest then. Those are kind of the guys I would look at as far as trades. Some guys who are really good, some guys who are...
The bigger question here is there an internal option? Is there Trevor May? They used Hildenberger.
The problem is, if
Taylor Rogers.
If they were here right now, they'd be looking at them right now. And right now it's Hildenberger, who has a 14 ERA this month. And since he blew up on the north side of Chicago, it's like 10-7-3. He's been getting crushed for a month.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be Addison Reed to start next year, let's be honest.
Sure.
But there's options. I think Familia is maybe the best one as far as possibly attainable. Zachariah Friesen, which starters in Rochester are the most intriguing options for the bullpen in Minnesota next year and beyond? So I don't know if he means starting pitchers for relief up here, but if you look at the Rochester roster pitching-wise, the guys that I'm keeping an eye on, we'll go by batter's face so I have a reasonably good sort here. Zach Littell is another guy we haven't mentioned much as a possible starter/reliever. He's got decent numbers this year. Sligers, as a reliever, interests me a little more if he can get his stuff to kind of jump up a little bit. Mejia, also, we didn't talk about Mejia as a starter. I think he, too, is an interesting...
I like Mejia as the piggyback guy.
Yep.
You do the race thing. You start someone in the first inning.
And the Twins are thinking about that.
And then he labors through 5.
So Nick Anderson is another interesting name. I believe he's a Brainerd native. Had some issues with
28 or so.
He had some off-field issues. He'll be 28 next year. John Curtis has good numbers. I mean, there's guys down there. Gabriel Moya.
Jake Reed isn't Jake Reed still
Jake Reed's in that mix. Gabriel Moya. Luke Bard is really struggling this year. I don't think he's going to be around. But Alan Buznitz deserves
Moya likes Moya for what it's worth.
I think Moya has enough deception to get lefties and righties out. So Moya might be low-key the guy that I would look at for that role. I think they want him in longer spurts, but Moya, low-key, is probably the guy that I'm looking at. Terry Anderson, September call-ups. Who you got? So if we look at the 40-man roster, I'm going to pull that up right now, you can almost always guarantee that it's mostly guys who are currently on the 40. I don't think that the Twins are going to have like a Doug Bernier type.
Dougie Baseball.
Well, and who was it last year? The Alex Wimmers.
Yeah.
They had somebody last year. Nico Goodrum got a call like that.
And Nico Goodrum's actually been fine, right?
Yeah, and so Royce today was talking about how the Twins could use Nico Goodrum and Daniel Palka. First of all, have you seen Daniel Palka play the outfield?
No.
Neither has he. Neither has he. The guy can mash. He hits the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
And Nico Goodrum he's a 27-year-old utility guy.
Yeah.
Who can't play short. Utility guys who can't play short are not that useful. Yeah. So I'm not lamenting them. Jake Cave is a better player than both those guys. All right. So I think John Curtis comes up. Chase DeYoung probably comes up. Littell probably comes up. You're probably looking at... Lewis Thorpe might have an outside chance of coming up.
Yeah, I always see him in the minor league reports doing it. Right.
Williams Astudillo, I'd like to get one more look at him.
The best.
By the way, Tyler Austin, I wrote this today.
Yeah.
His home run swing looks like Josh Willingham to me. I'm very intrigued to see how he plays.
One time, I think Twins fans know this, but one time a big prospect, right? That got
the Yankees fans really lamented losing him.
Yeah.
Zach Granite, maybe. I think he's kind of on his last legs in this organization. And don't sleep on Byron Buxton. I hope he's back up soon.
I would hope so, too.
Yeah,
it'd be nice for him to finish on a strong note. Yeah.
Yep. So let's see. I'm just making sure we don't have any others that snuck in here. MN Twin Pinions, should the Twins sign Forsythe to a 1-year deal? Could see him being a valuable depth piece, potential to start. So here's what I think about that. He hasn't played much shortstop in the big leagues. He's got the arm for third. He can play second. He's played a little bit of left field. He's got that Joe Madden in him. You know, Joe Madden loves to move his guys around, his Ian Happs, his Ben Zobrists, whatever. You let him hit free agency. You let the market tell him what he's worth, which is probably not much. He's hitting like 207 this year. Like he's literally having a miserable year despite how he's hit with the Twins. But keep his number on your Rolodex, your cell phone, your speed dial. He definitely deserves a phone call. I don't know about him as a utility guy, but he gives you a professional at bat. I don't know what the heck happened to him in L.A., but if he continues and has a nice last 6 weeks of the season, he becomes a priority for me as the second base holdover to bridge to Nick Gordon.
Yeah.
So he's absolutely a guy for me. Would you consider him?
Yeah, I go back
but
to
one year and what, $3 million, $4 million, $2 million?
It make instead of going, here you go, Nick Gordon, I think that was the problem with Hicks, is you said, here you go, Aaron Hicks. Go, you got to beat this. This is a replacement level.
And you know who it was that he had to beat out? Cleet Thomas.
Oh, I love Cleet Thomas.
And Jordan Schaefer.
Yeah, I actually liked both players, but yes, not very good.
Of course you did.
I mean,
you enjoy mediocrity. Why do you continually employ me?
I know. No, I just love Cleet Thomas, the Cleet Sanity, real brief, exciting.
With a K because he struck out so much.
Yes, but no gloves. And Jordan Schaefer is a cool guy. He became
a model.
Yeah. Oh, is that right?
And a pitcher.
Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but he had some drug issue, like some weird stuff like
He's
that.
covered in tattoos, too, which actually look kind of badass.
Yeah. No, he loved basketball. He was a cool, I shouldn't say, I didn't really love him as players. I liked them as like personalities in the locker room. But
Mark Simon is the last one we got. He wants to know if we want to see Mulder back next year.
Yes.
Knows that it's highly unlikely the Twins would let him go, just wondering. As I said in my mailbag, I really don't speculate on this stuff because I have too much respect for Mulder.
Yeah.
If they look to the outside, I made a list.
Yeah.
Basically connecting dots. You got your former Ranger guys, your Ron Washingtons and your Doug Brocales. One of my favorite Ron Washington stories.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a tirade, but they were talking to him about if Tanner Scheppers was going to come out and pitch for him. And Nate Sandell told me this story. He was with 1500 at the time. He was stringing for MLB.
Yeah.
And he says, you know what? We're not going to lose our tits if Tanner Scheppers can't come out there and pitch for us. We're not going to flip our tits or something like that.
Yeah.
And apparently it was just like the funniest thing that Nate had ever heard.
Yeah.
Because he said it like so cavalier.
Yeah.
But
God, Ron Washington.
I don't know if we can say
Ron Washington. Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe. But I mean, or you look at the Cleveland. They would have loved to get Mickey Callaway, is what I heard. And I think a lot of people would have liked to get Mickey Callaway. But then the Cleveland connection, you've got Scott Atchison, who looks like a grandpa.
That's right.
He's the relief grandpa that was on the team like 2 years ago. And I mean, any of those coaching trees, though, anybody who's got tags to Falvey and Levine.
So looking at it logically, I've always said Mulder's probably a separate podcast. I don't want to go. So that's probably an end of the season deal. But I think his best attributes have been very patient, as in like he really does not throw guys on the bus and seems to wait out his guys.
He's also patient with us after tough losses.
He is like he literally. I think it's why he was a good hitter. He just kind of steady heartbeat. He never.
But also,
gets too high, low.
What is there in the big leagues that he hasn't seen?
Yeah,
he's been in the big leagues in some form or fashion since 1978 or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, he's seen it all in 30 years.
Patient guy, over himself as a player. There's no Wayne Gretzky thing coaching the Coyotes where he's like, "Why are my players not?"
Or
as
Ted
good?
Williams.
Right. He's not. He doesn't. He's not flabbergasted that they're not all as good as he once was. And I think very, very willing to. He understands the nuances of the game. He understands kind of the game through his eyes, but also what at least Falvey and Levine are doing in their heads. Right. The calculus they're using.
Yep.
And he seems very. He's not anti-shift. He's not. Whatever. So I like him. He would be in the second year of his 3-year deal, right?
I could see them eating that money because it's not a huge contract.
Right. So, but my point here is I think he should start next year as a manager. If you see them taking another step back, I think it is very fair to go, let's bring our own guy. However,
can you give him another year? This team needs to go.
Well, so yeah, although that is a catalyst you can use to.
But are you? I guess it's not the NFL where you're completely starting over. But
yeah,
can this team? You'd have to bring in. You'd have to have your successor in your organization. Though, granted, I could see James Rowson or Derek Shelton or Jeff Pickler. Pickler showed up on the list of next managers. Pickler is a brilliant guy, and anybody you talk to, like you talk to Chris Jimenez about Jeff Pickler, he raves about him.
But I guess my point.
One of those three guys could easily be your manager.
And I could be wrong. You said 75 wins, right? I mean, that's not.
I think there's 74 win, 75 win team.
Yeah. I mean, it's one step forward, one step back, which is not ideal long term. However, if you're looking at next year, I think you roll it out. You see, is this team on a trajectory to do better than they did last year? Right. So, I'm
in a different spot. You have to win 90 games next year,
right. So are you
heads roll?
No. Right. So are you on a 90 game trajectory to start, or do they start poorly and all of a sudden, bam? You drop the hammer. And
but how much do you risk the whole season if the players don't react to whoever you bring on?
I feel like there's always something with.
I mean, I guess it's the same risk you had starting this year with all these players you brought in, and it just never clicked. I mean, there's always risk, but I don't know. I just
look at it
know.
like how much fault is Molly that Linden panned out. It seemed like Morrison was playing hurt the whole year.
So this is Morrison had a huge like gash on his hip.
Yeah.
Like his hip was messed up. People were saying.
I wonder if he played hurt all year.
I think he played hurt most of the year.
So, anyways, my point is I don't know how much that's on Molitor. I just like if he was a guy that I felt like was caught up in his past or was way too volatile or was fighting if it was kind of it was Art Howe, right? And if it was that
Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah. If it was that relationship, right, where you have to trade away the player to get him to stop playing him, like I'd say let him go.
But okay, 3 or 4 years they've been bad under him.
And I think
You could say underachieved, you could say bad, whichever you prefer, including the worst season in franchise history.
And I again, if they go another direction, I don't think it's out of line. However, I think my preference is to see Molly next season. And if you have to, like, you would not let him just play it out if it doesn't go well. If you have to pull the pin,
that's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
It's Derek Shelton if they stay in the organization, by the way.
Yeah.
I think.
Because he's been managing when Molly's gone. Yeah.
Boy, he's also he's the analytics guy.
Yeah. It's interesting. They seem to have gotten the right guys on, as in the Rousens,
I think their coaching staff is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Rudy Hernandez, but I think he really resonates with the guys he works with.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this Gelfand thing before we wrap up, because we have a really good, productive podcast tonight, but we got to talk about Gelfand, and then we'll hit the bricks.
So let's say this. We all took different stances, which is not uncommon.
Hang on, though. So you didn't really write a strong stance.
Yeah.
Where did you align yourself?
Mine was contention in 3 years.
So anybody who's not caught up on this, I said this team can reboot next year. This is not a rebuild. This is not a retool. This was just sloughing off like dead skin. Not to say that Brian Dozier's the dead skin on your elbows, but these are guys who are going to leave anyway. Ryan Presley was not going to make or break next year's bullpen. This does not affect the fact that I think they have to win 90 games next year because of how winnable the division is, how much talent will be on the upward trajectory, and how much they should add on their payroll next season. So I'm of that mind. Gelfand, on the other hand, thinks that these trades are now a new rebuild. And he made it sound like, 3 to 5 years?
I thought he said 7 or something. 5 to 7.
I mean, all MLB rebuilds are a lot longer than you think.
Yeah. Let's
say 5 years.
Look at, for example, internally, look at Bucks and Sano. Externally, look at how long it took Kansas City to,
and how quickly it blew up from the inside.
Yeah. So
they're terrible.
Mike, I would read his column. I'd read anything Mike writes, but
I have to. I'm the editor.
yeah. But I mean, but the point is his logic is sound. I think he comes from it. I don't think he has a lot of belief in Sano for sure. I don't think he really believes much in Bucks, although I think he knows how good he is defensively. But at the end of the day, read his column.
If you don't believe in Buxton and Sano, then Mike Gelfand's point of view is totally reasonable.
Pretty dead on.
Because you're not going to win a division with Eddie Rosario and Jorge Polanco as your best players.
Yeah.
You just aren't.
Why I'm saying 3 years is I still believe in Buxton. I'm on the fence with Sano.
But then how much does it matter that in 3 years the Chicago White Sox are going to graduate other prospects?
I don't know. I mean, the division, I think we've seen this weird turnover in the
to me, though, that's why you need to attack now with your Grandal move.
Yeah.
Take the division now. Because here's the deal. I don't necessarily believe in momentum. I don't necessarily believe in karma. But when you commit yourself to losing, you mess with the idea of what winning means in the league. People wanted to tank for Teddy, remember?
Yeah.
I don't mess with winning and losing intentionally. You play to do your job.
Especially in baseball. I don't know if that's true.
Still, I say in any sport, I don't like the idea of tanking because if you allow a losing culture, first of all, there's too many people that have jobs on the line based on whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
Second of all, I just think if you let losing come into your building, it pervades the building. How long has it been since fans were legitimately excited about the Minnesota Twins? Almost a decade.
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Yeah.
There's not a winning feeling in that building right now.
Yeah. And it's...
If you let it in, it will hang around.
So what do those moves mean then? Let's talk about that. I think
talking about the Presley trade,
I don't want to go player by player.
No. I'm just saying he's talking about the 3 big trades, and then Duke and Lynn as just whatever. He's talking about Presley, Dozier,
and really
and
Rodney. He didn't write about Rodney because that was
Rodney hadn't happened yet. But I get it.
But I think those moves, and again, I talked to Falvey for a while. You've been around. They're not like Terry Ryan level accessible where they have dinner with you, but they're there a lot. And
if you stop them in the hallway, they will answer your questions.
Yeah. And the impression I've got from talking, especially to Falvey, is that he wants talent at every level so that you just have waves of guys. And that, I think it is
it's the
really,
St. Louis Cardinals approach.
And I think it's because it creates competition. It's literally a chance thing, right? That you reduce, the more
if Byron Buxton's right arm falls off, you have someone else who can come up. It's the same way Cardinals have had Harrison Bader come up when Piscotty lost his mom. They had Randall Grichuk forgot how to play baseball.
Yeah.
You had Dexter Fowler forgetting how to play baseball, and they don't miss a beat.
Yeah, so I think this is less an indication. It's an indication that they gave up on the season, sure, and we talked about why.
Again, totally defensible, fans, if you're listening.
It's not a suggestion that you got to wait until 2025 or something for it. I think what it is Bucks and Snow have to deliver, and in kind of the same vein, Kirilloff and Lewis do too.
Yeah. There's no question.
And all of a sudden, then you have a fun, young, exciting team. Hopefully reminiscent of the 2001 Twins or whatever 2002 Twins, but
I think you have a very real chance to have the most talented Twins team in history in 2 years, and it's going to be just as Buxton and Sano get expensive and on the older side of their 20s.
And it also is probably when Cleveland, small market, it doesn't seem like we have Chris from Cleveland who.
Well, so Cody Allen's a free agent at the end of the year, Michael Brantley's a free agent at the end of the year, and Carnacion is after next year. You've got Lindor and you've got Ramirez who are around for a while.
So go in the door while it's open because otherwise the White Sox will. And we know how the division goes. It went Twins, Detroit, Cleveland.
Cyclical.
Right?
Cyclical.
Yeah.
Kansas City for a while.
Kansas City snuck in, right? They found their little gap and they won the World Series.
And Chicago was when the Twins were fighting them for Game 163s. So.
Yeah. So the point is, I'm with you. I don't know about much about Grandal or enough to say that's the guy, but I'm saying I'm with you that you gotta pick up. You gotta have the season you should have had this year, where it's at the very least, if not the 90-win season. So,
that's all we got for you guys. It's a nice little comeback episode again. Make sure you check out Pick and Shovelware. Another fun thing too, humility chains. Royce Lewis's mom makes chains on Etsy. Yeah. So if you look up humility chains on Etsy, you can get some pretty cool looking chains for under $40. Check them out.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been hanging out with Midwest Swing. Keep an eye on us. We're going to start making this a regular thing. We're going to iron out the schedule a little bit. We're going to have some fun with the rest of this Twins season, even if you guys aren't, because we're going to see these Cole Stewarts, these Tyler Austins, maybe some Nick Anderson action. And you know what? It's always fun for me to see debuts and new guys in Twins uniforms, because when you cycle through players, it gives you someone new to watch and get excited about. So, for Tom Schreier, at TSchreier3 on Twitter, I'm Brandon Warne. Follow us at Midwest Swing Pod, at Zone Coverage MN. And follow me at Brandon_Warren. We'll see you later.